This has been an interesting preparation period, getting ready for your reading. Usually I look at the toes first and then move to the astrological chart, and it wasn't working. And so I tapped into my intuition and realized that this reading is going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with your astrology chart, and we're going to go a little bit deep on that. And as I talk about your astrology chart, I'm going to tie that to your toes. So, and then at the end, I've drawn a couple of cards for you that we're going to talk about. So in these Stars to Souls reading, these Astro toe readings, the map of your lifetime is the stars. When you were born, the stars and their positions, as you can see on the screen, left an imprint. And that imprint is yours. That imprint is in your every aspect of your being. Just like the moon controls the tides, where the stars are at any given time, they do influence us. And so this is your divine star map. This is where the planets and many of the asteroids were when you were born. And then throughout our lives, we have, so inside this inner circle here, this is your birth chart. And then outside, this is what's happening today. The day that I'm doing this reading, just a couple of minutes ago, I put this. So this is what's happening now. So everything is moving. And so we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But I want to do a deep dive into your natal chart. In my style of astrology, there are 4 pillars. Your sun, which is signified by this circle with little dot in the middle, which is Pisces. You already knew this. Your moon, which is up here and is in Virgo. So it's opposite your sun. Your rising sign, which is right here. This is the eastern horizon at the moment you were born. It's in Scorpio. And the 4th pillar is your Chiron, which Chiron in Greek mythology is the wounded healer. And he's here at Sagittarius. So those 4 things are the major 4 pillars of your life and of your natal chart. But we're going to talk about a lot of the things that are happening in your chart. But let's start with your sun. So your sun is your creative brilliance. It's your superpower. It's your natural innate gifts. And it's here in the sign of Pisces. And so I'd like to read to you just some words that describe Pisces. And I think that you're going to find these very, very relatable. So the high vibration or the light qualities of Pisces are ease, inspiration, bliss, spirituality, wonder, and interconnectedness. The shadow side of Pisces can be self-sacrifice, addiction, and avoidance. Pisces desire to be relaxed, to be compassionate, to be connected, and to love. And some of the archetypes of Pisces are the dreamer, the mystic, the artist, poet, healer, creator, dancer, visionary. So think about how those relate to you, because you actually have a lot going on in your Pisces. So you've got your sun here, and then you've got your Venus, which is your attraction power, how you connect with people, and your Mercury, which is how you think and how you communicate. So let's talk just a little bit about this. And so every chart, well, not every single chart, some don't have a signature, but yours does. Your chart is mutable water. And that is Pisces. Pisces is mutable water. So as we go around the zodiac, we have the 4 elements: water, fire, earth, and air. And we have 3 other things, which are cardinal. That's the starter. Cardinal starts things. The other modality is fixed. This is a fixed energy. This is a more stable energy. And then we have mutable, which mutable is adaptable and flexible. Pisces is water. So think about water element. It's flowing. All right. And then it's mutable. So it's flowing and it's expansive. So if cardinal was water and ice was fixed, steam would be the mutable. Steam can fit into all the places. So that is the signature of your chart. So adaptability, flexibility, spirituality, a dreamlike, mystic kind of way of being and thinking is your signature on your chart. Now, you also, again, in Pisces, you have your Venus and your Mercury. And so let's talk about what that actually means for you. So Venus in Pisces, to connect with people, it requires gentleness and tenderness and compassion. You are those things. And so in order to connect with people, this gentleness, tenderness, sensitivity is important. And when you don't have that, when you're not receiving that, oftentimes you will suffer in silence. We live in a very fast-paced world, a world that doesn't always appreciate the feeling and the depth of feeling that Pisces has. With your Venus in Pisces, you are highly intuitive. Now, some of the shadow side can also be that you can be self-sacrificing, like we talked about, suffering in silence, emotionally dependent, and you're also very sentimental. And so it's okay to have this feeling of sentimentality, of attachment to things, as long as we stay out of some of this emotional dependence, shadow side. And then when we talk about your Mercury in Pisces, this keyword is reflective. And again, intuition. Pisces is super intuitive. All of the water signs are super intuitive. And you've got your rising over here in Scorpio, which is the fixed water sign. And we'll talk more about all of this over here in a minute. But with your Mercury there in Pisces, you tend to learn through absorption and through experience, not necessarily through study. When you want to gain knowledge, it's not to just collect knowledge. You want it to have an application. You desire harmony, and that is really important to you. In fact, harmony is a non-negotiable need for you. And creating these spaces of expansion and safety and gentleness are very, very important to you, both intellectually. So if you're discussing ideas, you don't do well with a hard challenge to an idea or a philosophy that you're putting forth. That can lead you into self-sacrifice and suffering in silence. If you have a discussion with somebody and you desire to discuss with people, it is important that it is done in tenderness, that it is done in sensitivity, and with an open mind. So that's your sun, and a lot going on there in Pisces. Now, to make this even more exciting, you have your sun in your fifth house. Your fifth house is the house of play, of creativity, of shining. So it's really important. This is part of your superpower, is you are fun, and you're fun in a very gentle way. You desire to have fun. And then with your Mercury and your Venus over here in your fourth house is about close relationships, about family, and about safe space. So this goes back to this non-negotiable need for you to have safe space to express, to think, and to love, and to connect. So how can you apply this to your life? These can be where you start to set up your boundaries. You're not going to have a discussion with somebody if it's not done in respect, safety, and security. So just remember that. And if a discussion gets too heated, you have the right to walk away from it. You also have a conjunction here with your Mercury and your Venus. And so your attraction power and your communication and intellect are blended together. So the way that people speak to you will influence your attraction level to them. The way that you speak to others will influence your attraction level to them and from them. So your relationships and your communication are very important. So I want to tie this over to your toes here for a minute. Look at your communication toe and your relationship toe. There are a lot of similarities here in how these toes look, and that's because your relationships and your communication are very tied together. You cannot be in a uplifting and equal relationship with somebody that you don't feel comfortable communicating with, or that you feel that there's some resistance from them in communicating with you. And so just again, really, really being aware of that. All right, let's talk about your moon for a moment. So your moon opposes your sun, and that just means they're in opposite sides of the zodiac. So we've got Pisces sun and Virgo moon. So your Virgo moon, Virgo is mutable earth. So again, we've got this mutable, this flexibility, this adaptability. And your moon sign here in earth is what can contain that steam or the water. It's like being able to put a lid on the steam. So it's not just going out and going everywhere, but it's, this example of putting the lid on the pot. It's steaming the rice so it cooks it. It's creating a place so that the steam becomes more useful and more serviceable to yourself and others. Now, with your moon in Virgo, I would love to read to you some words that correspond with Virgo. Virgo is about wholeness. Virgo is about health, service, well-being, healing, effectiveness, routine and procedure, and humility. So you may have had challenges setting up routines and procedures for yourself, but you've thrived when they've been set up for you in a way that works for you. So perhaps later work times and starting your work, time to be alone, time to socialize. So these are things that are important to you. Now, the low vibrations of Virgo can be martyrdom, self-doubt, overthinking, perfectionism, worry. So just be aware of that. And as children, a lot of times we're going for our moon sign. Our moon sign is our emotional needs. It's our heart. And so some more non-negotiable needs are to be healthy and to be helpful. You also are very good at organizing and structuring. And so lean into that, into how you organize and structure. And do you do better creating your own, or do you do better finding something, a container, if you will, that somebody else has set up, but it works for you? And I just warn you to be cautious of this. We live in a world that is very, very driven, a very yang, Y-A-N-G, yang. It is the active energy, the dynamic energy. It's been called in the past masculine, although I've tried to move away from masculine and feminine terminology, but it is the active energy. And so we live in a world that is very much like that. I mean, wake up early, work hard, fill all of the hours of your day. This isn't going to work for you, Pisces girl. It is not going to work for you. So finding structures that work. If you desire to be an entrepreneur, to work for yourself, it is important that you set up your structures so that you have them to satisfy this moon, so that you don't get stuck in self-doubt, overthinking, and perfectionism. So explore what works for you and what doesn't, and then you can build a structure around that. How much sleep do you require? When do you require breaks? How much connection time with other people do you require? And how much alone time do you require? And then building that into how your day, week, month, year works is going to bring you a great deal of satisfaction. Next is your rising sign. Your rising sign is in Scorpio. Scorpio is an oftentimes misunderstood sign. And this is your rising sign. And sometimes we have difficulty connecting to our rising signs because it's really our leadership style. And you have a lot of leadership potential. So we look at this space between your toes here. There it is. Please feel that. I just had an energetic release when I said that. So this is important for you to pay attention to. You are absolutely a leader. Now, you're not a show me kind of leader. You're not a look at me and follow me leader. You are a leader who people will naturally follow when you step into and embrace your leadership style, which is Scorpio. Scorpio, the light side is trust, empowerment, emotional integrity. Scorpios can be very intense, and they love presence and deep transformation. Now, the shadow side, the place that sometimes Scorpios can get stuck in and why they can have a bad reputation is because the shadow side is power, including power over others, or choosing to diminish your power and be subservient. Secrecy. This is a big one, especially with the Pisces. Okay. Scorpio's deepest fear is shame. And so there's some secrecy that can sometimes be involved in Scorpio energy. And then, like I said, shame. So the desires of a Scorpio, so feel into how this relates to you, are to be loyal, to feel deeply. You are a feeler. With your Sun, Mercury, and Venus, they're in the feeling sign of Pisces. And then here in the feeling sign of Scorpio, having your rising, to feel deeply, to trust, to transform, and to bring light to the shadows. So let's talk about this trust toe here, which has a lot of blocked energy in it, particularly in this second half of your life. So a good opportunity for you to journal about where have you felt like you can and cannot trust? Where have you felt betrayed? Where have you betrayed? What shame and secrets do you hold that would be better to be released? Now, that doesn't mean sharing other people's secrets, but what it does mean is what secrets do you have that it might be time to just release and let go? You know, let the freak flag fly. Or I don't love the word confess because it connotes in my mind some power dynamics, but what secrets is it time for you to just tell? Consider that and write about that, and realize that you will have shame and fear come up because of this Scorpio energy, and it would be extraordinarily cathartic for you to do that. You have so much intuition, and we can see this in your toes. So this open channel here of intuition, this is your leadership and your channel of intuition. Now, what's blocking that is these communication toes and how they're looking to the past and leaning in. And then on your spirit path here, you do have some leaning in. So digging into what is spirituality to you? How can you express your spirituality is important to you? How can you express your spirituality in a way that feels good to you, in a way that connects you to source other than disconnecting you from source? You may receive messages from source in ways that are different than what you have been taught, or ways that other people receive these messages. So pay attention to the way that you receive the messages and trust them. Both of these communication toes are turning to the past, turning to the big toe. So I invite you to gently twist the top of those toes and invite the energy to go more straight through the toe, and realize that as a Mercury in Pisces, you do have a little bit of a different way of communicating, and that you may not be always communicated with in a way that works for you. So have the courage to state your boundaries in how you wish to be spoken to. And if there are people in your life that continually communicate and interact with you in a way that doesn't work for you, and they don't desire to respect the boundary that you are placing and that you are asking them to communicate with you, consider that they may not be part of your group, of your circle. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means it doesn't work for you. Remember that when we communicate, it is important that we both communicate our ideas and that we communicate them in a way that is received by the person that we're communicating with. Because that's communication, is communicating in a way that can be received. And so that's important for you, and it's also important. This is important. When I yawn during these readings, it's because there's an energetic release. So the energy is already moving on this. I invite you to make a list of people with whom you feel you have good communication, with people that you feel heard and that you can communicate your deepest thoughts and feel seen and accepted. And who does it feel uncomfortable to share your thoughts with, to share your secrets with? And look at what the communication dynamic there is. Okay, there's a couple of other really important aspects of your chart that I would like to discuss with you. And one of them is, we're just going to go around counterclockwise on this chart. So in the rising sign, your first house is empty. Your first house is about your identity. It's your ego. It's who you are. And with your mutable water, that your identity has likely been tied up in the expectations, dictates, and structures that other people have set forth for you. And with no planets in your first house, this accentuates this. It accentuates what's going on in your sun, which is that mutable water identity. The blessing of this is that you get to invent it for yourself. Using that Virgo moon, you get to invent your identity. And I think that that might have been part of the reason why doing your chart and then relating that to your toes was why this was important for your reading, so that you could start to see some of the things that you can build your identity around. I would like to read for you a list. There's a lot of words here. Take the words that resonate. I'm just going to read it off my notebook here. Take the words that resonate. These are all words that show up in your divine chart here. Imaginative, magnetic, discriminating, emotional, social, home and hearth, sentimental, reflective, charming, artistic, intuitive, psychic, compassionate, warm, vigorous, dynamic, master manifester, philanthropic, faithful, trustworthy, inventive, humanitarian, theoretical, persuasive, reformer, and freedom. Now, the word I'm using nowadays for freedom is sovereignty, because a lot of times with freedom, especially with your mutable water, that is like steam. Steam has ultimate freedom. It can go everywhere and anywhere, but that doesn't do a lot of good if we don't have the structure that your moon can provide to have sovereignty, which is being your own authority, which is being your own ruler, so to speak, having rulership or authority over you and your life. Sorry, the cat wanted out. All right. So think about those words and what that means for you in the first house, especially as it ties in with your Pisces Sun, Venus, and Mercury. And another question I have for you is, what is your primary love language, or as I like to call it now, your language of affection? Are words of affirmation important to you? This would make a lot of sense with your Venus here. So just think about that. What is your primary language of affirmation, your language of affection? All right. Now we move into your second house. Your second house is about your values. Your second house also pertains to wealth and prosperity, comfort and stability. So in this house, you have Pluto and Chiron, and they are in a tight conjunction. They're they're in a loose conjunction, but they're still conjunct. They're 5 degrees from each other. And so they're playing together. They are blended together. So Chiron is the wounded healer. Chiron is, and this is in the sign of Sagittarius. And so here's some questions I would invite you to ponder and to journal about. Is it safe to have? Is it safe to receive? Is it safe to attract? Is it safe to embody? Is it safe to have money and financial resources? So some of the wounds, like we talked about Chiron being the wounded healer, this is the wound that can become our greatest strength. This is the wound where we know how it feels. And so we have compassion and we can help others who are experiencing some of these universal wounds. So some of the feelings that can be a part of this are feeling worthless, feeling insignificant, feeling lack, feeling unloved, or feeling unattractive. You can also have distrust towards strangers, struggle with being judgmental, not connecting to your own spirit, or feeling purposeless. And some additional reflection questions are, is it safe to believe? Is it safe to explore? Is it safe to have my own beliefs? Are strangers safe? Are mine or other cultures' beliefs, ideals, or religions safe? Sagittarius is the sign of exploration, long distance travel, higher thinking, and higher education. Okay? And so with that, some of the themes that can come up with your wound in Sagittarius could be religious persecution or dogmatic upbringing, bigotry, challenges with giving or receiving, not knowing or understanding your own beliefs, not feeling able to explore, or feeling stuck in a place. Some other themes in your second house can be feeling undervalued, not feeling physically secure, poverty or hoarding, eating disorders, or housing insecurity. Take what resonates with you and release what doesn't. These are just overarching themes that can show up with Chiron in Sagittarius and in your second house. So what is some of the healing wisdom around this? That can be connecting with your higher self and sensing your own spirituality. And then through that freedom, helping others do the same. Travel as a source of self-discovery. I know you like to travel. And so this can be a major source of self-discovery. And that could be a good journal prompt is, how has travel helped you discover more about yourself? Healing wisdom with it in the second house can be financial and wealth building. And we're going to talk about this at length when we get over here to this part of your chart. Creating beautiful spaces, understanding your values, and creating comfort and peace. With Pluto here, Pluto and Chiron are kind of friends, and they're about transformation. And so you're here to transform things. Now, I told you we'd talk about some wealth and prosperity over here, but we're going to talk about it a little bit here in your second house. So you were born for prosperity. That is your birthright. That is your destiny. With Pluto in the second house, this gives you the ability to turn liabilities into assets. This is a placement for a lot of very, very wealthy people. And you have the ability to handle wealth well. In fact, a lot of people with Pluto in this placement become financial planners, bankers, philanthropists, and other things having to do with money. Now, also with Pluto and Chiron here in the second house and in Sagittarius, you need a lot of freedom or sovereignty, and this will build your natural enthusiasm. So that's a very auspicious placement for Pluto in Sagittarius and in the second house. All right, you have two goddesses in the sign of Capricorn, which we're not going to go to, it's beyond the scope of this reading. But you have Vesta and Lilith in Capricorn, and we can talk about that more one-on-one. So one of the things that I would recommend, going back to your Pluto and Chiron here in the second house of Sagittarius, massage these prosperity trust toes, these fifth toes, because and just ask, what are my next steps? What do I need to uncover? Or some of those questions that I mentioned earlier, massaging your toes, your fifth toes, while asking that question could be extraordinarily empowering, because it'll get the energy moving and have that moving up through your body and into your mind. Now, as I'm on this, the number one message from your toes right now is work on these communication toes, because that's going to open up your intuition, which is already very, very strong. And it is also going to give you more self-trust. So these second toes are top priority. These fifth toes will be very beneficial with what we just talked about. Now let's look at this third house. Your third house is the house of communication, of intellect, of your siblings, and you have a lot going on down here, including this bold line here, the IC, which is kind of what you've brought into this life already knowing, is all here in Aquarius. So you have a stellium here in Aquarius. A stellium is when you have 3 or more planets in one house or one sign, and these are conjunct. So you've got 2 degrees, 5 degrees, and 6 degrees, and you can see that right here. And so with all that stuff in there, you have, and it's in Aquarius, which is the sign of revolution, the sign of the collective, and the sign of humanity as a whole. And you've already done a lot of work. This south node here, this south node is about where you've already been, what you've already learned, what you've already come into this life with. So you look at that down there, you have come in awakened. All right. Uranus here in its home sign of Aquarius. You've already awakened. You are an old soul, and you are here to awaken other people with that beautiful Pisces energy put into the container that your Virgo moon can offer. This little crazy haired goddess here, that's Juno. She is the goddess of relationships, of love and marriage, of romance. Okay, put that with your Pisces Venus. You know how to be in relationships. You know how to be a good romantic partner. The key is that romantic partner must give you this sense of security and safety through the way that they communicate with you and the space that they hold for you. Then you have Neptune down there in Pisces, or in Aquarius as well. So Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So Neptune is a big ruler for you. Neptune on its light side is about blending. It's about it's the higher octave of beingness. It's about deeper connections. Now the shadow side can be delusion, illusion, and fear. So just be aware of any delusion that you have, that's just down here from past experience before you came into this life. All right, you've mastered it. Move out of that. You have what it takes. All right, we've already talked at length about what we've got going on here in these houses. Now let's talk about this fiery Aries Mars energy. Mars is the ruler of Aries. Aries is the warrior. Aries is straightforward. Aries is an extraordinarily young sign because it's the cardinal fire sign. And that's about being that spark that goes for it. And oftentimes people who have their Mars in Aries can really blaze through things. Now, you've got so much water in your chart, it might actually sometimes be putting out the fire of Aries. Aries wants to move and Mars wants to move forward. And this is in your 6th house. So you need to be very cautious that if you drive your, one quick thing here, our world operates in the realm of Aries. Productivity is so important. Efficiency, getting stuff done. Like, that's the world that we live in, and that's the world that Mars in Aries lives in. Now, it is in your 6th house, and you've got it with all this other water. So you must be very careful that if you drive yourself too much, that it will cause illness. Like we talked about in your structures up here, building time for downtime, for alone time, for reflective time is a non-negotiable need for you. Interestingly, people that have Mars in their 6th house are prone to headaches. And I know that that's something that you have suffered with. So just be aware of that. It is fast energy, and so it can cause frustration, especially with yourself. If you've ever felt like, I just don't move fast enough, or if I keep going so fast, I'm going to burn out. Burnout is very real with what you've got going on here with your moon in Virgo. And Virgo rules the 6th house, just so you know, which means they're very tied together. And all this Pisces energy, burnout is very real if you push yourself too hard. So be aware of frustration with yourself or others and honor these things. Aries and Mars in Aries can really get carried away. Mars rules this action toe. And if we look at this action toe, you do have some blocked energy in it. And look at those toenails. Like, the toenails are straightforward. You've got this cute little bend in there, which means you don't always finish what you start, which means you might start with a fire and then go out like a match. So just be aware of that. But these toes, the toenails, nice and straight and straightforward. You've also got some space here between your communication and action toes, which means that you can take action and you don't need to tell the world about it. Or you can communicate a lot and then delegate that action to someone else. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to do it all. All right. As if Pluto in the 2nd house placement wasn't enough for your prosperity code, you have Jupiter in Taurus, you have Saturn in Taurus, and you have your part of fortune in Taurus. And this is your descendant. Okay, so this is stuff that you are good at. Okay, and this is what you are attracting to you. So let's talk about each one of those. You've got Jupiter here in Taurus in the 6th house, which means that if you take care of yourself, you will experience beautiful health and vitality. One of the words that you may not have related to that I read earlier was vigorous. Jupiter here in the 6th house is vigorous. And so remember that, that is, if you don't let this Mars take over for you, you will have vigor and health. And health is very important to you. Jupiter is expansive energy. And so it's expanding Taurus and a 6th house energy. Then we have Saturn in Taurus. And this is an interesting placement because Saturn in Taurus, Saturn usually brings some restriction. Saturn is about focus and structure. And so Saturn is here in Taurus, and Taurus is a structured, Taurus likes structure. Taurus likes comfort. Taurus likes stability. And so with your Saturn placement here in Taurus, this is really a beautiful placement for it. And you have the absolute ability, it is part of your karma to attract. Taurus is a sign of prosperity. This Taurus Scorpio axis, this is the axis of abundance and prosperity, possessions and values. Okay, so just really lean into that. Saturn can be strict. All right, this is part of the powerful placement because remember, we talked about with Pluto here in your 2nd house, you have the ability to handle money well. And Saturn is here to help you do that. Having a savings plan is one of your tickets to health. You also have your part of fortune here. By creating spaces of stability, spaces of comfort and beauty, that's where you will naturally flow prosperity to you, fortune to you. I'm just looking at the notes that I took prior to our session because I want to make sure that I'm getting everything that I wrote down. Okay. One thing that I did miss is down here in the 3rd house, there's a lot of karmic energy going on here because you have these asteroids, your south node, and these outer planets of Neptune and Uranus. So this 3rd house is about your conscious mind and your intellect. Your Pisces energy is about your unconscious mind and your intuition. Part of the message of this reading is for you to lean into your unconscious mind and your intuition, despite the fact that Aries is there pushing you to play in the world that values intellect and consciousness above all. Become conscious of your unconscious. That's one of the key messages for this reading. And you are a leader for your siblings. The 3rd house is the ruler of siblings. You're a leader for this with your siblings. I know that you were raised to value intellect and to second guess your feelings. And it's time for you to put that behind you and trust your feelings and trust your intuition. You've already mastered the intellect. All right. Let's keep moving around and let's look at your your Pallas Athena. She is a goddess asteroid and she is here in the sign of Cancer. And part of the reason why this is important is because you are experiencing right now your Pallas Athena return, meaning Pallas Athena has gone around the zodiac and is coming and activating this again. It's also at the 29th degree. And so if you look at all these other degree signs, so looking at the ones that are close to the planet, these are minutes. So looking at all the other ones that are going around the planets, this is, you've got your sun at 28 degrees Pisces. And we'll talk about that when we talk about here at Pallas Athena being at 29 degrees Cancer. So let's talk first of all about what that means. And then we'll talk about these late degree placements in your chart. So with Pallas Athena in the in Cancer, this is about trusting your feelings. So if everything else that I've already said has not invited you to do that, having your Pallas Athena here in Cancer. Cancer is the I am statement for Cancer is I feel. Cancer zodiac people have deep feelings, and the ruler of Cancer is the moon. So moon children have deep feelings. And with your Pallas Athena there, this really is about embracing your artistry and trusting your feelings. And with your sun at 28 degrees Pisces, this is actually, and with all this karmic energy down here in the third house in Aquarius, this is the purpose of your life, is to trust your feelings, to trust your intuition. You have psychic abilities. Trust those, lean into those. And then let yourself shine. So, we're going to talk about your North Node here, and as well as your midheaven in Leo in just a moment. But when you have planet placements at late degrees, those are indicators of your destiny in this lifetime. All right. And as you do that, you're going to have the material wealth to, as you pay attention to that, and as a comfort base so that you can do that. So please trust into the fact that you are a manifesting genius, you are a master at it, and that in this lifetime you are going to have the physical comforts so that you really can dive into the unconscious and your intuition and your psychic abilities. Now, here's something that must happen as you do that. You've got your North Node. That's our stretchy zone. That's where we move into in this lifetime. So like I said, on the bottom part of your chart, that's where you've been. This is where you're going in the direction. Part of your purpose in this life is to not just embrace and hone those skills and lean into trust, intuition, and your psychic abilities, but then to shine, to make it fun, and to shine. Leos are, look at me, here I am, brilliant. They're the sun. Okay, think about the sun. The sun wants to be seen. The sun is the brightest thing in our sky. And your midheaven is going up here to your Leo. So part of your life path is letting yourself shine. Please lean into that and see how that feels to you. I had a vision in my mind of like those psychics on TV that like have a whole crowd and they're running psychic readings for them. Not saying that has to be your reality, but that's the energetic vision that I saw. Somebody who is willing, open, and capable in every way of having this intuition and shining in it. All right. I want to jump here to the 12th house in Libra. Your 12th house, if you notice, also has no planets in it. just like your first house and just like your 8th house. Your 8th house is about transformation. Your 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. So all the things I said about Scorpio, we can say about the 8th house. No planets. No planets in your 12th house, which is about the unconscious mind, because you are here in this bottom half of your chart with your sun in Pisces and with all this karmic energy here. You've already mastered so much before you even came into this life. You are an old soul. And with the 12th house coming into Libra, this is about beauty, balance, and harmony. Let's talk about Ceres here. Ceres in Greek mythology is Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. So again, as if you needed more, more understanding of the fact that you are going to be materially taken care of in this life, with Ceres in Libra and in the 11th house, this is about extending your nurturing nature to the collective in a humanitarian way. It is also about cooperation and egalitarian relationships. Your relationships must be equal, and then the harvest will come. Ceres is also the great mother. Okay, Ceres feels very at home in Cancer, like we talked about with Pallas Athene here. I'd like to skip over to your transit chart simply because right now we have Pluto transiting through your 3rd house. Pluto is a karmic planet. Pluto is asked about death and rebirth. And we also have Saturn here in your 3rd house. So again, this outside circle, this is the skies right now. The inside circle is your natal chart. Okay, so you have 2 karmic lords here in your 3rd house. That's why we're having this reading right now, is to remind you of where you've been before you were born into this world, and remind you of where your potentiality is and where you're going. You have mastered so much of what you've struggled with in this life. Please embrace that you have mastered it. Okay. We have Uranus here, which is the Great Awakener, that's been going over your natal Jupiter, Saturn, and part of Fortune. And so as the Great Awakener goes over it, this is awakening things. So when we talk about prosperity, this may be awakening fears and anxieties that you've had about prosperity in the past, as well as giving you hope, thank you, Jupiter, for the future. Mars might be activated. Your Mars might be activated right now because Mars out in the cosmos right now is going retrograde in the sign of Gemini. Mars does not like to be in Gemini, and he's retrograde right now. So really start to rethink how you're taking action. And then this is what I really wanted to show you is Pallas Athene has gone over, or is right here in Or right now. She's at 26 degrees and she's going to be going over your natal Pallas Athene. And so the question to ask here is, what feelings do you not trust? What don't you trust about yourself? Athena was the warrior. How do you feel about that archetype? Because you've got your Mars and Aries down here, and that is the archetype of the warrior. And then we have Athena here going over each other, and then over your North Node. Then we have Ceres, same thing. Ceres is moving out of Virgo and going to be crossing over your natal Ceres. And so this is going to ask you to look at all of your relationships and to expand your nurturing nature. What can you do on the humanitarian level? Everything that I've said about your natal chart ties into your toes. Massage the second, massage the fifth, and lightly massage the first on the left side, your great toe on the left side, while you ask yourself the questions that we've talked about in this reading. I hope you found this to be inspiring, enlightening, and informative. Please feel free to reach out for any questions. Thanks.